Today I will be presenting effects of speed of a co-located virtual walker and proximity towards a static virtual character on avoidance movement behavior for ISMAR 2023. This publication was written by Michael Nelson, Alexandros Koulias, Dominic Cow, and Christos Massas. While several studies have analyzed human locomotion behavior in virtual environments, few have examined how humans perform collision avoidance with virtual characters, either static or walking. To the best of our knowledge, no study has looked at avoiding static virtual characters while following a co-located virtual character performing the same avoidance task. To that end, no definite findings on how co-located virtual walkers can impact human avoidance movement behaviors. From our study, we believe that our findings could aid VR developers in the creation of simulation algorithms that are more precise and effective locomotion experiences in immersive environments with co-located VR. The goals of this research are as follows. How do proximity and speed factors for a virtual walker impact participants' avoidance movement behaviors, participants' avoidance decision regarding a static virtual character, and participants' interactions with a co-located virtual walker character during the avoidance task. The experiment was run in an 8 by 8 by 4 meter room modeled after a green room in our university with a one-to-one mapping with the virtual environment. The player would walk between the starting node, blue, and the ending node, red, which are spaced 7 meters apart to give adequate time to stop. The MSI VR1 backpack computer was used in conjunction with an HTC Vive Pro HMD to make use of the accurate tracking system. The application was developed in Unity 2019. 2 male virtual characters were used to standardize the conditions across participants. The static character was downloaded from Mixamo, and the virtual walker character was created using Character Creator 3. A standard idle animation with no look-at feature was used for the static character, and a walking motion animation was used for the virtual walker. For the first set of conditions, the trajectory of the virtual walker was set relative to the static character. The 3 conditions are close, medium, and far. The trajectory was based on the concept of proxemics. The space around an individual is divided into 4 zones. The public space, between 3.6 and 7.6 meters. The social space, between 1.2 and 3.6 meters. The personal space, between 0.5 and 1.2 meters. And lastly, the intimate space, which is less than 0.45 meters. Likewise, the close condition is at the start of the band of the personal space. The middle condition is at the middle of the personal space. And the far condition is at the start of the social space. The other set of conditions are the speed of the virtual walker. 1.2 meters per second was chosen as it was estimated to be the normal walking speed. 0.96 and 1.44 were chosen for the slow and fast conditions as a 20% increase or decrease from this norm. For the procedure, we start with an informed consent, followed by gathering demographic information that contains age, gender, and VR experience. Next, we give the participants time to adjust to the virtual environment by walking in the empty, virtual 1-by-1 replica room. There are no virtual characters in this phase. 2 trials are performed sequentially per experimental condition, one after the other. During the trial, participants are not informed that they had to follow the virtual walker. After walking from the start position to the end position, the screen would turn black, it would return the characterless version for them to walk back to the start position, and during this time the HMD was not removed. From the average of the repeated condition, the duration, trajectory length, speed, minimum distance, side-by-side distance, avoidance side, left versus right, distance to the virtual walker, and if or how many times the participant passed the virtual character were recorded. Condition order was chosen by Latin squares and repeated for all 9 conditions. There were 22 participants, 10 female, 11 male, and 1 non-binary. Ages range between 19 and 35 with a mean of 26. For VR experience, we had 5 with no experience, 4 with 2 or less, 6 with between 2 and 5, and 7 with 5 or more. We used a 2 ways repeated measure analysis of variance, ANOVA, to analyze speed and proximity. Bonferroni was used for pairwise comparisons with p less than 0.05. For duration, we found significant results for the speed factor. We found that walking tasks took significantly longer when exposed to the slow condition than the normal and fast speeds. For trajectory, we found that participants followed longer paths when exposed to slow walking conditions than to the fast walking conditions. For speed, we found that participants were slower when exposed to the slow condition than normal and fast. Lastly, we found that participants, when exposed to the slower conditions, had a significantly shorter distance to the virtual walker than when exposed to the normal and fast conditions. When looking at our first research question on how proximity and speeds factors affect participants' avoidance movement behaviors, we found that walking speeds were slower when collocated virtual walker was slower as well, and faster when they were faster, which implies that participants attempt to coordinate their behaviors. This expands and confirms similar studies that a single virtual walker was enough to impact participants' movement behaviors. When looking at the trajectory length, we saw that participants would follow longer paths when exposed to a slow virtual walker. We saw some zigzagging pattern. Due to previous studies that show participants were aware of self-presence, we think that these were attempts to avoid potential collisions. The results show in our proximity factor did not impact the avoidance movement, however, a fact that we think can be explained by the minimum distance and side-by-side measurements and pre-planned avoidance strategies. Participants were unaware of the proximity factor, but aware of the virtual character, and thusly were not surprised by a sudden event and had not need to adjust their planned action. We found that regardless of the minimum distance being front or back, participants followed a similar pattern between trials. We also found repeat avoidance sides between trials. The avoidance side was also held equally distributed for slow speed and middle proximity, and slow speed and far proximity, but participants kept the static character to the left in all other conditions. In terms of proxemics, the participant kept the static character in their social space, and the results show that avoidance strategies pre-planned their task and kept their initial plan towards the character. In terms of direct interaction with the virtual walker, we found that when the character was slow or in a normal speed and far proximity, we found more participants passing them. In slow or moderate speeds with enough clearance, participants could either create a suboptimal path to circumvent the character, or they could clear a path and increase their speed to reach the assigned spot quicker. In contrast, where virtual walker was faster, participants decided to follow them. Participants followed the same activity in the second trial as the first, meaning they were consistent between trials, in both relation to the static character and the virtual walker. We chose not to include a questionnaire, but to focus on the movement data. The choice to use a highly standardized environment may have influenced behavior. A larger or more complex environment may help future studies. Eye tracking data was not collected, and due to the small sampling size, we did not find gender differences. This has been shown to be a factor in previous studies and can be explored further in future studies. We also chose to use human characters instead of androgenized dummies, which may have impacted perception, and we did not embody the participants. The results of this study imply that a collocated virtual walker character can influence participants' avoidance movement behaviors without influencing their decisions. In the future, we would like to expand this to include more than one virtual character standing at the midpoint, and by varying their appearance and gender. Lastly, we would like to explore how different side avoidance and when the virtual walker comes from the other side. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation today.